Yeah, let's just leave it at this. Yeah, I figured the track would be quite loud. Let me turn down the track a little bit then. That's the better way to do it. Cool. Yeah. There we go. Sorry for the noise, should be good now. Yeah, what up everybody? So glad everybody could make it. Like, there's already quite a bunch of people in here. I think it's nice that so many people are interested to yeah, progress their skills using this service. When the fire got in touch with me, I was really yeah, really motivated to hop onto the channel and to see what kind of community lies within. Cool. So I hope everybody is excited. Yeah, I kind of wanted to keep it yeah, a secret which tracks I'm going to display, which tracks I'm going to talk about. I also wasn't so sure because I made a post online to see what people would prefer, but in the end it kind of aligned with what I had in mind beforehand, which is Thoughts. The track I just played, I released it like 2 years ago in March, about 2 years ago. It was on my my debut release, so yeah, that's why I think it was fitting. It was when I felt like I was still a starting producer, and I can imagine a lot of you guys, yeah, feel the same way or would like to see the approach I took when I was in your stage, and at your stage, I mean. And then afterwards, I'm gonna talk about, yeah, I think my biggest solo track, which is Acolyte, and I hope you guys will like that. So yeah, like right off the bat, I could just jump in, but I would rather have it that you guys would give me some suggestions on what I could talk about, because like I could just, yeah, easily show you the whole project file. I bounced some stems of everything to, yeah, to be able to even play this monstrosity. But please feel free to yeah, show me some suggestions. Yeah. Ducking and sidechaining stuff. Yeah, I could start out with that. Who are some of your biggest influences in drum and bass? Let's start with the drums and mastering. How the bass noises go around the drums. Tricks towards perceived loudness. That is an interesting thing to talk about. Turn off parallel on the drop. What's the reason behind that? One tip noise that I personally thought you, yeah. Yeah, it's already so much to talk about. How to layer drums. Okay, yeah. So it seems as if a lot of people would like me to talk about the drums, which I get because like the drums in this tune are very particular. So yeah, let's start out with that. Then afterwards, I'm surely going to show you some of the side chaining, which is also very. Yeah, I did it in a very specific way, which is not very common. So I think you guys might like that. Okay, yeah. So yeah, these are the drums. It doesn't look like too much is going on, and that's because it is. The idea behind the whole EP at the time was that I found it really interesting to do a lot with really little sounds, because Because if you think about it, you know, old rock bands or whatever, music which has been going on in the past, before, you know, you could even make music on laptops. It consists of very little instruments, but you know, they are able to create the whole song with just the elements they have. And I noticed that it was contrasting from what I was doing before, which was every time I thought of a new movement or thought of a new section, I was thinking of a new sound and tried to layer and layer and layer and layer. Excuse me. And that, yeah, kind of got in the way of making the track itself. So not only are the sounds very, very little and simple, I also tried to make them in such a way that they, yeah, fit with the idea, with the ideology behind the EP. So yeah, I'm just gonna try to crack on. If there is anything in the middle of my explanation you would like to know, I could, you know, just drop a comment. I will choose to make a segue or not, whether it's relevant in my opinion. So yeah, I can just solo the drums and see whether that works. Okay, this is not nice. It's hiccuping a little bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna check a stem. And so if you look at the kick itself, which is like the driving part of the track, because you know, most of the low end was the part that compromised most of the idea behind the track. It's super simple. If you look at the waveform right here, you can see that it's literally just a sine wave. Yeah, apart from that, I put a little click on the top. Yeah, so it is very, very little information, but it says a lot songwriting-wise. I tried to do the same with the snare.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer in every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
I tried to see whether it would be possible to fit a lot of information in a really short amount of time. Because what you should remember is that drum and bass is a very fast genre. I can imagine like not everybody on this channel making or talking a lot about drum and bass, but drum and bass is like a completely different beast from all of the other genres, in my opinion, because of this fact. The tempo is so incredibly high that it is pretty important to think about how long the sounds individually are. If any of you maybe know about Current Value, he was my inspiration for making these kinds of drums. And he told me, and he said in his drum tutorials, that if you know the right timing related to the drums, then you should be able to master the drums. And I think he was right. It has to do especially a lot with length. So right here I tried to make a snare which is really short but snappy at the same time and really gets to the front of the mix of the whole track really easily, especially like this. So there are multiple transients right here. I think these were both like part of a synthesized finger snap, or you can see it right here. It's just an ambient click sample. And right here I can see, like I recognize this because I've done this a lot. I made a sine wave click, and I'm going to show you the patch later on. And after that, I layered some claps and some white noise with some ambience underneath. So this by itself could have been the sound, but it's not. I thought all of these layers were necessary in this context, because as you've noticed, the track has a lot going on. But the drums are at the front. So by making sure that the kick has this really loud click at the beginning, and the snare has the same, I was able to get these drums to sit in the front of the mix, which is a tough cookie if you are working with so many drums. Because in this track it was almost all of the drums are sitting in the front of the mix. Everything is focused on 16th notes. A lot of it is just dependent on the idea of that when a human is listening to the music, they only have like a certain amount of how should I say it, attention span. And I like to think about it like this: if a human is listening to the music, then he can only listen to so many things at the same time, which makes it so that you have to make a hierarchy. You can't just hope that whenever you layer upon layer upon layer music, that it will eventually become something that sounds nice. You have to kind of delegate the amount of attention span the listener has. I don't know if I phrased that correctly, but I think so. So then if you keep that in mind, it's pretty logical that you would want to try that the drums sit in the front of the mix for a very short moment, so that it doesn't interfere with another sound, and that another sound would come afterwards, so that it's almost becomes one sound, but that there is only one sound at a time. They follow each other up. So it's in this drop, you can see that it's first kick, and then there's this huge almost like a chunk of bass after it. Then I've made sure to lower the volume when the next bass tab hits, and then right here the snare starts, as you can see. So all of the sounds have their own space. And then there is this impact that was kind of at the same time as the snare, or maybe a bit later. And then the same time, and then the same thing happens right afterwards. So I kind of separated these sounds in time. I'll play you once more, so you'll be able to, maybe now that you know what I'm talking about, or now that I've explained this, understand the track a little better. So the progression of this track is related to trying to make layers of this and trying to create contrast with this idea over time. Yeah. So even though it feels as if you're listening to one track with a lot of things going on, if you zoom in, it is actually just, one sound at a time. And I kind of like that. It made it so that I was able to zoom in on every sound and try to fit it in the mix as perfectly as possible, and then it wouldn't interfere with something else. So I saw that Jack Wilson asked a very valid question, which is it common that drums will never run into or never run over into each other? I think I kind of know what you mean, or I'm just bad at reading, I guess. But I would say it is uncommon for drums to never run into each other. because a lot of drum and bass has been made with the idea that you start with a basis of a drum break, and this drum break is like, for instance, the amen break. I could show you. There you go. It's like a drum break with sounds continuously covering for each other. Yeah, in this very first moment of like maybe not even 1 second, I already heard like a trumpet stab, I heard a cymbal, I heard some background noise, I heard a kick pedal which has been ramming against the kick drum multiple times because it's not very, it hasn't been articulated very clearly. And then there's a snare right there. There's also some hum in the background. So yeah, I would say, historically speaking, the idea of the drums not even touching each other is very, very atypical. It's also really hard to mix or make the drums fit together this way. And to be honest, I kind of got away from the idea that all of these drums should be individual parts. But nevertheless, this way it is way easier to make them all fit in a mix, because for all of the individual sounds, you're deciding how you should make them and how they should fit into the mix, and what kind of function they should have. So yeah, and then we have this these are the hats for the percussion or something. I think just the hi-hats. Very particularly enveloped, as you can see, and this is so they don't fight with the transient information of the drums. As you can see, these drums have very specific shapes, so they don't get in the way of the rest. And the same goes for the kick here. I think that if you sidechain all of the heads completely to the kick, that it usually sounds a little weird. So I try to get I try to make it so that everything still gels together a little bit. You should have a balance there. Don't ever just completely duck sounds with each other, because it just sounds like ass. I absolutely hate it. But yeah, as long as there has been conscious decision making there, it usually sounds already better than just lumping everything together. Okay, so yeah, these hats have a very particular way of fitting in the mix as well. I try to give them a bit of swing rather than just having straight eighth notes. And if I look at the spectrum analyzer, you can also see that these hats have been very particularly placed in the frequency spectrum. So I did this to make sure that it doesn't clash with anything else. It is very typical to have for the hi-hats, especially acoustic hi-hats like these, to have a little mid-range so that they become a percussive element as well. But that wasn't the case for this one, because I wanted to focus on the rhythmical pattern of the bass stab and the moments where the drums could kick in. So I have some ring modulated noise here to create some more texture. I found that when I released this EP, everybody was really interested in this for some reason, even though it's like a really minimal sound, but I just think it sounds very pleasant. Stuff like that. I would just layer it all across, wherever I could find a little moment where it would fit. And then after 8 bars, this starts. A tambourine in between to create some rhythmical contrast. And I mean, that's literally it for the drums. Remember, these drums were supposed to be, an element to the track, which don't take up too much of your attention. So it's, I could have put addictive drums layers in all of the sounds, and I could have made it as complicated as I wanted. And but I didn't do that because compositionally that didn't make sense with the track. Is the ring modulation frequency like 30-second notes or just a random frequency? Good question. No, it is not a random frequency as far as I know. I remember it being like this, that I would open up a synth, and I would usually do this with Citrus. Yeah, if you've used Citrus before, I'm not gonna get too much into it, but I hope you just understand by listening to my explanation. I'm gonna output some noise, and this is gonna be very loud. I don't really like this. Yeah, there we go. So what I'm gonna do is one of these noises is going to the output, and I'm gonna pan it to the left, and then I'm gonna do it again, and then I'm gonna do it to the right. And what's gonna happen is I created some stereo imaging here, because if you look at a waveform of a piece of noise, it is basically just all of the points in time which an audio file consists out of plays back at random positions. So every time noise is being generated, that happens. And what I did is I chose to go to the ring modulation tab and use envelope for operator 6 as a ring modulation source. So this waveform is now going to be ring modulating the whole thing. And I liked, playing around with a saw wave, but now this ring modulation has a very specific character. So if I play it right now, you get this, very wide moving noise texture. And I remember doing exactly this. I can also double check with the waveform on the oscilloscope because it looks the same. But I remember that, the track originally being in F, because I went through many versions of the sound of the track, and I remember it having to be at F because a bass was hitting at the frequency of F, so that it would, the lower frequency of the bass would reinforce the crisp in the highs. And I very much like that idea. It also helps that, this sound comes from a synth and not, some random noise sample being ring modulated with a ring modulation plugin. Yeah, I mean, go ahead and steal this. It works like a charm. It works everywhere. It also works now in a way that, you can do some slide notes and then go from one frequency to the next, and then, you start, ascending in pitch. So it starts ring modulating faster this way. So yeah, and I mean, along with a sub and some distortion, you already have a sick bass right there. That is kind of one of the sounds, people have been asking me about. So I hope this helps. Just make sure you do it tight and you don't overdo it, because it becomes tacky very quickly. I've also heard tracks of people who like my style and wanted to do something similar, and that's fine. But then they chose to completely fill the high frequencies constantly with this ring modulated noise or noise hats. And I don't really agree with the idea. So yeah, moving on. Like time's passing by quickly, and I really would love to show some more. So yeah, this is the bass, and yeah, even though it's called bass, it's not much of a bass. It's more of a elongated kick. Because yeah, it's derived from the idea of trap, footwork, working with 808s, just making constant bass impacts. So here we go. So yeah, these are all sounds with the same idea. They are very simple, very empty, but they have a function they need to fulfill in the music. And yeah, after some time, I could make it so that they all fulfill the right function at the right moment. I mean, this sound, I purposefully wanted it to make a little. I purposely wanted to make the sound a little screwed up, because if you look at it, you know, this doesn't really look like a typical sine wave. There is some, you know, there are some shenanigans going on, and it's also clipping a little bit, maybe a bit too much, I don't know. And yeah, it has a transient from a sound that is not a sine wave, because if you think about it, you know, I came up with this idea because, first of all, I was very much in a phase where I wanted to make the music I wanted to hear in the club. And I don't necessarily do this much right now, but there were some moments in the club where I thought, every time I stand in the middle of the dance floor, I always feel this sine wave. I can feel a sine wave. And why do I mean feel? I'm currently writing a thesis, my bachelor thesis upon this topic, and it's that you should think about it like this. You don't always necessarily hear a sound. You also perceive a sound with your body. These clubs have these huge subwoofers which can produce so much kinetic energy that your body becomes a vessel which can resonate along with the frequencies. So this is a kind of sensation that we all know and we all love it, but we don't think about it very much. And I wanted to zoom in on this, especially with this track, by trying to make the listener feel some type of way, like literally, not emotionally, but like I literally wanted them to feel a specific amount of impact. And yeah, if you think about it, sine waves always have this feeling about them. If you listen to like the Matthews or Noisia or whatever, they have a very specific way of shaping the lower frequencies, and these lower frequencies usually rely on, or have for a very long time been relying on making sine waves really heavy and low, so that you feel them as a bass. But I wanted to make it a little dirtier, because maybe you've never done this, but I experimented a lot with this. I'm going to show you guys. No, that is not what I wanted. So if you play a sine wave at a lower frequency, you have this feeling about them. And really quickly, I'd like to just compare the two. So I hope you guys have either some headphones or some thick subs, some thick boys. And if not, then too bad for now. Let's hope my CPU doesn't completely die. It's just such a big project that it doesn't really like to do too much at the same time. Okay, sorry, sucks a little bit. I really would have loved to show you that, but okay, that is a sine wave. But at the same time, I'm gonna use some citrus for this because that worked just now. Instead of taking a sine wave, you could take, a piece of noise, and instead of just playing it like this, I'm going to forcefully try to get out the lower frequencies of the noise. it's a bit quiet, but you can already see this waveform. You know, it gives some unpredictable results because it's literally random instead of predictable like a sine wave. So yeah, just thinking about you can see that this waveform that I created, now it's a piece of noise. And if you would layer this on top of a sine wave, you could experiment with the amount of diluted movement you could create versus sine wave movement. And this, if you would feel this on a dance floor, you know, maybe this has quite a lot of lows inside of it, or maybe a bit of high mids as well. But the more lower frequency, lower oscillations you have in an audio file like this, the more you're going to feel that randomness. So yeah, it's not really like a modulator. You just layer it on top of the sine wave itself, so that you have some room to play with how much of the sine wave you wanted to feel, so the predictable feeling, or how much of the noisy, rumbly, techno feeling you want to perceive. Because, you know, a sine wave is cool, but because it's so predictable, it doesn't feel broken. I don't know how I should otherwise explain it, but there's something about this noise that just feels broken. It reminds me of like older movie trailers, which have a lot of like cinematic effects for like stuff breaking all the time, like, you know. And then I kind of wanted to a degree have that effect in my bass tabs as well. So it kind of means something else than doing the predictable, you know, substab with some noise over top and then distorting it with each other. Because just wanted to do something else, feel something else, literally feel something else. Yeah, it's followed up by some different sounds, some Reeses. I tried to move them out of the way with the sidechaining right here. So I have these automation clips right here, and you might be thinking to yourself, why put this hell upon yourself? And I don't know. Oh man, I remember working on this track, and every time I wanted to change the kick pattern, because it's, you know, like very particular. It's not really predictable or something. It has like a very specific groove. I remembered every time I placed the kick in a specific place, I had to replace all of the side chains. So cool for those of you who don't necessarily understand what is happening. In this project file, I have 4 buses, which is an idea I took on this idea for a very long time. It is just the basic idea that you have a bus for your drums, and a certain amount of those drums are being sidechained to the rest of the drums, because, like, especially in this track, the kick and the snare needed to be in the front, like I earlier explained. Then you have a bus for the bass, and, you know, whenever a bass needed to be sidechained, there is a bass sidechain. Same with the synths. I have a place for the synths and a place for the synths which are being sidechained, which is usually all of them, especially in this track, I think. And then the same for the sound effects. And what I like about, you know, having these automation clips, which are linked, I should, you know, show you guys. what I liked about having these automation clips being linked to, a moment where the kick hits and then a moment where the snare hits, I was, completely in control. Completely. I like doing this so much because I could say, okay, instead of like a sidechain compressor having like these time variables which limit them, these sidechain compressors, they get a click impulse or just the original source, and they always have to rely on like being able to analyze the amplitude and then sending that signal to the volume automation, and then the signal can duck down, and then still not every sidechain compression plugin has this capability of like going down quick enough, or doing it with the right shape, or doing this with no distortion or whatever. And I can understand, because like it's a process that is supposed to happen very, very quickly in audio domain. And therefore, if you have multiple of these setups, it can get very CPU intensive. As you've noticed, I don't have the best CPU, sadly. So yeah, I needed to think of a solution for that, and I wanted to do it my own way. So for me, it was the most logical that I made these automation clips, which completely duck down at the very moment when this transient hits. I am a very strong believer that these transients, the very first click of a drum hit, are the very most important thing of the drum. So if they would, get blown away because of a sound that was going on before, that couldn't go out of the way quickly enough just because this stupid sidechain compressor was too slow, then yeah, it would be a pity, and then the sounds would get cluttered, and I wanted to have this clean mix. So yeah, as you can see in the waveform of the original track right here, it's obvious that everything moves down before that the transient hits. This transient is clean. This transient, this is the bass tab. But yeah, every time something is supposed to happen, it isn't cluttered by anything else. And especially the bass, I very meticulously adjusted the length of every bass hit so that the tail of the bass hit wouldn't clutter the... What the fuck? Oh wait, 1 second. Okay, so yep, that is the sidechaining part. So yeah, I could show you exactly what happens if I solo these. They just they have individually been linked to duck all of the sounds that go into this group, and then I obviously made sure to route all of the sounds that need to go there in that group. And because I work a lot with, which is the whole reason this project is so CPU heavy. Yeah, the whole reason why I worked with all of these sounds in MIDI is because, it leaves a very clean mixer. It's just a bit of an imperfection of FL Studio, that you could see that everything which has been routing into the mixer, just takes up space, and it's ugly. It's just annoying. So I would just do all of the mixing of the sounds and the mastering in here. So for this drum break, little drum break snare, I made sure to compress it right here. I made sure to EQ it the right way. I made sure to put a wave shaper at the end to make sure that it doesn't clip anywhere else, or doesn't make anything else clip. And then they go to the right thing. And I later on I found a better way to do exactly this. So this was also one of the reasons why I wanted to show this project file first. It's because this is kind of an inferior way of the way that I like to sidechain right now. I manually placed all of these sidechain clips and then at the moment where there was an alteration in the shape or an alteration in the pattern, I made it easy for myself to see so that it's easy to copy paste over, so this corresponds with that kick hit in the middle of the bar. This lane kind of corresponds with the kick hit at the end of the 4 bars, and so on and so on. And this is like a ghost kick or whatever. So yeah, it makes it easy to see what kind of sound side chaining is going on. And yeah, for the drums that is a bit different, and for the bass that is a bit different because there are different bass hits. And yeah, that kind of stuff.
Toen dacht ik wel.
Bruh. Okay. What else is there to show? Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of other interesting stuff here. It's just some sound effects. If there is anything, some last questions you have, just before I finish up talking about this track, then please leave them there right now. Yeah, I mean, this is some very, very little sounds with, very simple movements so that you create some kind of gesture over time. Yeah, this gesture over time was very important to this track. That's why I like the shapes in this track are so obvious, easy to see. What's a really common mistake you hear in demos sent to you? Yeah, that's a good question. I think it relates to this this idea of what I earlier talked about with attention span. The attention span of people who listen is not very much, and if a producer, for a producer, it's very easy that if they have a track which isn't interesting enough, quote unquote, they will add something else. And instead of thinking about songwriting, they would, how to fix that with songwriting, they would fix that with adding more sounds. And I think that shows weakness. I think that shows, not understanding what it means to make a composition. Like composing correctly, I think to me, I'm usually really impressed if I hear this skill with starting producers, that they know, like, oh yeah, I should make this kind of sound because it'll make the listener feel this, and now this needs to happen, and then that needs to happen because that'll contrast with what went before, and then you kind of create this road that the listener should walk on, and it'll walk by different things and notice them, and some things in the background it won't notice. But yeah, they need to be there for like atmosphere and stuff like that. I think that's so important, so important. Processing on the vocal. I think this is interesting to show, and I think this is cool to show. This is maybe a bit of a nerd thing, but I had a lot of fun trying this out. It's cool that you said that it's a vocal, because it's not. I synthesized it. It does sound like a vocal to a degree, but it is not a vocal. It kind of sounds like it, but now that you will listen to the stem, out of context, maybe it'll make more sense. So yeah, for those of you who have very keen ears, basically what I did, and I'll show you like what Alex asked. I think it is this synth. Not entirely sure. But yeah, there you go. That's it. Yeah. Basically, what is happening is I selected one of the preset noises, which Serum has, which is H-Breath. I'm not exact. Oh, it's under Organics, and then it says there H-Breath, and then I think I pitch shifted it a little bit, maybe by 0.5% or something you can see. I don't know, or I just didn't, I guess, and I didn't even move the phase either. So probably a lot of people have used this sound in this position, but I tried to recreate the harmonics of a vocal. I think I dragged in a vocal sample. I don't know whether you've seen this before, but if you drag in a vocal sample in the wavetable view from Serum, it is possible to create your own wavetable from an audio file. And it usually doesn't sound so cool if you modulate it. So if you change the wavetable position throughout, but for me it did really work to just keep it at one position and then change it after a while, and then layer it together with the breath sound, and then I made sure to you have the automation clips right here. So this macro 2 is probably changing the position in the wavetable, because you can, really perceive that in the music. It doesn't only change notes like what happens in a MIDI here, but it just it also changes timbre, like the vocal is saying something different, I guess. Yeah, and about the tails, I remember them just being a part of the Serum patch. Yeah, there you go. I just put it on like 32 notes on ping pong mode. So you get this very quick, like going back and forth delay with a very little amount of feedback. So it wouldn't completely, have a long smear of feedback going on all the time. And I think I made sure to automate that as well. Or at least by some modulators or something, or, oh, there we go. Yeah, macro 1 does that. So it's macro 1 modulates the EQ to go up and then the delay to go up. So you get this, movement that the sounds become a little more interesting. Yeah, and in the middle of that, I also had these like exports of the classic same vocal but with a lot of reverb, and then you mix that into the sound. I just reversed that and faded it in with a volume envelope, and yeah, that became a part of the track. And then after 16 more bars, I wanted the same sound to change up even more. So yeah, I think I played it an octave higher. Yeah, what's also perceivable is that it's constantly going up in pitch to create even more tension, to create even more excitement, so that it would kind of resolve really strongly on the first 16th, like this. I'll play it in the original so it has some more context. There you go. So yeah, this moment was like kind of the moment where, harmonically speaking, the vocal ended up on a high note, and then it went back through like lower frequency energy. So the focus is on the bass because the vocal completely cut out. So yeah, that kind of has to do with like trying to direct the attention of the listener, and then trying to see whether they whether they click on the right moment, or whether something starts at the right moment. Cool. Yeah, I think that was it for thoughts. I could answer some more questions while I load the next project file, because I kind of have to crack on here. The vocal rise effects at the end of the drop, last 18 bars or so. Is that just a sample? No. What I did at the time, I guess it's a sample. Yeah, it is. It is a sample. It's just, not really many people think about it as a sample. Basically, if you go into Serum and you go to the noise oscillator, then you have this section where you can select different sounds, basically, they are samples. It's like a little sample playback module, and some people don't even think about it, and they don't need to, I guess. But these samples, they have been made in such a way that they loop when they end. If you play them at a really high pitch, it's pretty obvious. So when I was discovering this, I thought, oh, that's perfect, because then it just means that, if they infinitely loop, then I have a sound that, loops easily, which I can, give a pitch bend, and then before I know it, I have a riser. So I literally just put an LFO on the pitch, and then it went up by holding down the notes like for 8 bars or something, and then at the end it becomes audible. Comes through on the in the mix, and then the sound creates this rising feeling. And I think it's a really easy trick. Just have a really elongated sound, something that's just like from a massive atmosphere, or something that has been going through like time stretching algorithms so that it becomes really lengthy, so you can really perceive the beginning or the end, and then just either loop it really quickly, or make sure it's blurred with a reverb, and then let it go up in pitch. And then that's usually the way I make risers, because doing it that way, it creates resonances, but it also doesn't necessarily overemphasize the riser. It doesn't become too interesting that it would, distract you from the other sounds you should listen to. So, next track, it's Acolyte. For those of you who haven't heard it, I got it right here. Not sure why I don't have it right there. Oops. Then this should work, I guess. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah. I'm just gonna listen to it. While you listen to it, feel free to put some questions in the chat, so I know what you guys want to see. So let me know.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Yeah, so there we go. Sorry if it took a bit long. I felt it was necessary to play the whole thing because I was like, this song, rarely does the same thing twice. Something new is happening the whole time. And especially the second drop was for me completely different than not only what anyone had made before, which I had listened to, but also it gave a completely different twist to the original drop. The melodic section, very Beethoven of you. Yeah. I think, to be honest, melody is way more important than making a cool sound. I got lots of questions like, how do I make this sound? How do I make that? But nobody asked, how do you make this melody apart from this question? Okay, so I don't remember which key this is in, I think. D sharp harmonic minor. Yeah, and I was right. Okay, so here we go. So if you look at the notes of D sharp harmonic minor, what it is, what's the key of, how should I say it? What is the special factor of this this mode harmonic minor is that you have this I wish the sound would have not been so weak. Why is it so weak? Oh, I already get it, yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what's happening right here is I'm making an arpeggio from D sharp to A sharp and B, which is the perfect fifth and the semitone above that. So that's very, how should I say it? A very obvious thing if you want to make music sound evil, But instead of maintaining this this arpeggio for the whole time, what I pretty much did right here, like for almost five times 16 bars. At some point, I thought it would be really cool to resolve it in a different way than how I started it. So I took the root note of the arpeggio and moved it down, and took the unstable note of the arpeggio, which was the B, moved it up to a F. So you get this sudden relief of all of these, frequencies which don't really work together, because that is what creates the tension in the back, I think. And then it, completely becomes something else by keeping up this arpeggio. So I'll play it right here. There, it moved. So how I like to think about these things is pretty easy, actually. If I hear the original sound, I just like to think about how could I sing it, or how would it be easy to remember? How is it digestible? And this is a really pop music thing to say. Ferry Korsten would be proud. Yeah, I bet. Trance for the win. But how I like to think about it is, if you make something too complicated, then it's not digestible for the listener. If I would play this, to a random friend that knows nothing about music, I can see from the look on their face whether they are confused or not. And that usually means it's either not complex enough or too complex. And what you want is to be in between. So what I try to do is the same as with thoughts. I try to make it so that the listener can listen to one sound at the same time, and every time something is introduced, it is introduced with reasoning. It feels right, and that happens a lot of times from the very first moment of that I switch from an atmosphere and a kick roll to a drop that completely contrasts with the original, and then every 16 bars something happens to switch it up, and I'll pinpoint it for you just so you'll notice what I mean. So here I finally resolved the melody which you had in the original intro, which it's not really a melody, but it's this. So it's like a kind of an ascending note, which is hinting at something. So something is going to happen. Whoa, what is it? What is it? Mystery, mystery, mystery. And then at the very end. So then you resolve at the root note of the track. So then we do exactly what we had in the arpeggio right there. So you go from this D sharp to the D. And I thought it would just be too boring to do the same sound twice in the same way. So I added this gnarly bass note at the very end, which is like almost just pink noise. It's so distorted that you almost listen to like a piece of noise which is completely uncontrolled, but it's like it gives such a raw vibe that it worked. And I didn't try to make this too big. What I thought was really important, that it cuts off so that it goes back to silence instantly. Like this gives such an enormous amount of contrast that it gives a bit of excitement. And this contrast is also what, it scares people. It makes them sit at the very tip of their chair, because they're thinking like, oh, what did I hear? And then suddenly everything is cut back, and then suddenly something is like right back in your face again. Compositionally, this I think is my most the idea that worked the best in terms of in songwriting. So yeah, next 16 bars, the thing that contrasts instantly is the snare is switched for the clap. Just go through this quickly. So now at the next 16 bars, it's again, completely contrasting because all of the drums are gone. The bass is low passed, but you put this incredible emphasis on the melody of the first 16 of the drop. Yeah, and it's very simple, but it you feel something because of that. It's I wanted to have that section here because it kind of gives you the moment where you can digest everything in your head and think, wow, that was fucking sick. That was the purpose of making a moment like this. And then I tried to smoothly transition that into something else. So here you have the low pass atmosphere again, which you had in the intro, but now with 4 to the floor rhythm, which means just on every downbeat, on every one beat of the bar, you have a drum hit, which is like very typical in house and techno. So yeah, there we go. That is the start of the second drop with a fake out. It's like a classic jump up drum and bass trick. Just have the bass on the drop be the only thing when it drops, so that it attracts the attention from the listener. It anticipates that the drums are on their way. So when they finally hit, it gives this extra moment of ecstasy whenever it all comes together. Very, very cheesy, but I just it worked. So I thought just let's go with it. So this synth melodic layer, this wop 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 wop, is exactly this arpeggio you heard at the end. It's just been gone through different modulations. I think I turned on or off an LFO tool or something. Or no, I just didn't even use an LFO tool. I just did some volume envelope. And then that slowly, becomes the sound of the outro. So I made a very unexpected house part, and then then I wanted the same again as the moment where everything cuts out. But instead of losing all of the momentum, the energy, the drive you have, I thought it was necessary to be a bit quicker in how you go to the outro. I don't think I'm putting any swing on the bass or the production. I can imagine that it seems like that because of the cadence of the rhythm inside of the bass, which I'm going to show you in a sec. But right here you have this, this universal swing knob, which affects all of the MIDI in the entire project, unless you tell it to not be affected by that swing knob, which I think is a bit weird, but it does, work, and it's really effective. I've definitely used this a lot in other tracks which revolve a bit more around the drums being the center of the track. For instance, No Match has this very one of my latest tracks on my last EP, which is called Abrasion. I have this really exaggerated, but no, in the bass so yeah, this is the bass. A lot of automation. I think all of this automation was at some point part of the track, and what is a pity is I remember doing this bass twice, because I remember at some point not being happy with this bass at all, and then I said, it doesn't go to the right frequencies in the right amount of time. If I play the bass by itself, I should have this. Where is it? I should have the bass exported. Did I not export the bass? Did I? Let me have a look for a second. I'm 100% sure I have all the stems. I'm just not in the project file where I opened all of them. That's fine, I got them right here. Stems. Just keep this open. Yeah, I can show you guys my my folder. It's full of secret business. Yeah, there's the bass stem. There you go. Yeah, so it has this initial hit. And yeah, there's not so much to it. It's a very typical way of processing basses, which I found more drum and bass producers adopted, which is thinking in additive synthesis. So if you look at this spectrum at the top here, you can see that this bass has a very stable sub. I should loop this to make it easier to listen to. The sub is almost, standing still whole of the entire time. And the harmonics, so the multiples of the sub are being pushed into the distortion which comes after. I think this is okay, so it's not so simple, I guess. Yeah, okay, this is gonna be a tough cookie to explain. But basically, how should I explain this? Where is the MIDI? There's the MIDI. Where is it? Yes, that is indeed a chain. Yeah, it's, what happens really quickly if you have a patcher like this, it's just, oh yeah, okay, I need another layer. I'll layer another thing. Oh yeah, okay, this layer needs to be edited at this point. Okay, I'll add a plugin in between. And there's absolutely no reason to have this many. But apparently it was necessary because I made it twice even. So yeah, I mean, the first bass might have been simpler, and then I decided, being that simple is not good enough. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is the sub, isn't it? Let's have a check and hope my computer doesn't die on me. Yeah, okay, so I can see that's the sub. Just trust me on this one. But I know that it's not moving. Right here, I had a modulation on the noise. But I later on decided that it wasn't necessary because I got the noise from another source. So this is literally just a sine wave which is not moving, I think. No, it's not. I don't think I've used this modulation because if it's just a sub, then it can't really move. But here, I can see that it has all of the other modulation. So yeah, I made sure that this gradual movement the bass has been the result of very specific harmonics going up. So I should turn this off. Yeah, right here you can see the lower parts of the harmonics, and this layer of noise is being filtered in very gradually. And then at the end, this layer of reverb in the back is being ducked down. And yeah, that's all the result of this automation, and it's all very subtle. I'm automating some FM here from the square wave, and I chose the harmonic series wavetable because that's a very nice wavetable to get different timbres from. Because if you have sound and you're FMing it from a sine wave at a certain octave, then it's super easy to say, okay, I want the same sound but with a new character which feels like a switch up. So a part that can move the timbre so that it feels like a progression of the original. Then you just move this wavetable around, which it is taking the FM from, and then before you know it, you have a different part of the sound you can compose with, and that's what I said. That's what I was after. I wanted to get most of the movement and most of the musical idea out of one sound. So that's what's happening here at the end again. It moves from, if I look at the MIDI, it moves from lower a C, which is like incredibly low. It moves up to a D sharp, and then it moves down to a D, the same which I was doing with in the arpeggio. And then it makes this after 16 bars, so this is bar 17. It makes this movement which goes from low to this D, and then it makes this different harmony, or this different melody, I should say. So let's just go there. Yeah, and this very moment that this note is cut off means that the melody goes from C to D sharp to F sharp, and then for this moment that it's gone down to D sharp and then back to F. So you have this short, what the trap 808s do, that they move back and forth really quickly. Yeah. So I started, as you can see, with square wave, which is being FM'd, and as you pointed out, the LFO is linked to the FM amount, the filter position on the high pass, and this is all to create like very specific movements, so that this this revolving sound this bass has feels not too little but not too much. I think that it's so easy to overdo movement. If you have like a sine wave and you have the first harmonic of that sine wave and they alternate, you you create a lot of movement really quickly, and especially if sound is in your face and then it disappears, and in your face and disappears, then that movement doesn't work. If you make a Reese in drum and bass, it usually works the best if all the individual harmonics are moving by themselves, but you can't really perceive like an obvious revolving movement. So I had to be really careful with this. I can't really think of another example because if it sounds bad, then people usually don't do it. So I can't really name a track or anything. But just I made sure to keep the movement it makes under control this way, and using these macros, I tried to make that movement a little bit bigger or a little bit lower, more at the moments where it was appropriate. So I got a question about how do you feel about a C in bass music, even though it plays only briefly? C is on a subsonic level, it's barely perceivable. Well, no, it's not, because you remember what we talked about when we were talking about perceiving frequencies not only with your ears but also with your body. C feels especially good to your body. Okay. So this is a bit of a stupid argument, because a lot of speakers don't even have a frequency response below 30 hertz or 40, even 50 if they are cheaper. You wouldn't necessarily encounter this quickly in a club. They usually go down to about, I'd say 35, but that is, pushing it, because if you go to like a country with, I won't name any names of countries, but poorer countries with poorer clubs, then you'll usually have poorer setups in those clubs, which will make it so that, you're not necessarily guaranteed that if you play a specific note that you also get to feel that note. So I was definitely experimenting with this, and it was a bit of an edgy move to go down this low, but I think it paid off, because I think more and more club sound engineers started noticing that this frequency was so incredibly low. I should phrase it differently. I think more club engineers started noticing that the low sub in drum and bass really matters if they organize a drum and bass concert. And it's not because of Acolyte that all of the sound engineers started thinking like, oh yeah, maybe we should high pass it less. No, that's not how it works. I just think it opened up conversation about this process a bit, because I remember, speaking with, again, I won't name any names, but with big artists, and they said, if a track is in F, I think it's cool, but if it's any lower than that, I won't play it, because I won't be guaranteed that the listener will experience the sub. And I can completely understand this, because like 5 years or 10 years ago, this definitely was the case. Like, there is a reason why there is so much noise and music, which is really good, which is in F or G even, because there was this trend of people, wanted to guarantee for themselves that this sub was perceivable and loud, and that it would shake your body around. And a lower sub is not always necessarily better, because a lower sub is heavier, yes, but with a higher sub, it's easier to create quicker movement and create more tension. If you listen to Running Blind by Noisia, it's music with it especially has a higher sub for a reason of, giving you lots of this movement really quickly, this tension. Same thing with the Sirens from Matthews. All of the tracks with Reese's with a lot of movement have this idea that the track doesn't need to be low if there is this tension which upholds. But there's also an argument for not necessarily focusing on the very sub of the sound if the first harmonic is really present. I think the first harmonic is also really, how should I say it, important in conveying the depth or the feeling or the movement. If the first three harmonics of a bass sound are on point, then usually that's everything you need in terms of the feel of the bass. So that's what I tried to make get on point first in this track, and then later on I started adding the mids and filtering that in, and adding some highs. But I usually start at the very bottom of the bass, and then the rest of the sounds are just like random samples. I can play this sound by itself. Yeah, that is evil. Yeah, I just made this sample at some point, and I thought, if I ever need something super extreme, something that is the most extreme ever, I couldn't think of much more than this. So I used it in this this context. I think after you've done touring the world over one day, you should become a college professor. Well, I'm glad you think that way, Alex. I'm glad you think that way. I like explaining a lot. I like explaining because I like thinking. I like to have a concept in the music. I like to have something mysterious in the music that people can discover, as if it's an Easter egg. Yeah, I like putting little smart nerdy shit in the music, so people have something to find out about the music, even if they've listened to it like 100,000 times, So there is something to be said for making music that is appreciable by your everyday guy or girl that goes to a drum and bass party for the first time. And it would be cool if the track can also be liked by an experienced producer like Moja or whatever. And it doesn't have to be either or. I think it's a lot of fun to think about, how can I please both? How can I keep it so simple that everybody can digest it, but how can I also make it interesting for, not only myself, but the advanced listener. So that's just, the nerd shit I like to put in the music. Cool. Yeah, if there is anything else anybody would like to talk about, we're officially 1.5 hours in, but to be honest, I'm having fun. If there's more things people would like to ask, I'm totally down to show it. Makes it more layered, not in terms of channels. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it makes it more layered in terms of perception. Can you show the percussions in the second drop? Yes, I will. And I'm actually really excited to show this. So I'm glad you asked this. I think it was kind of a statement. So first I did something super simple. I had a patch which is called New Percussion, which is something completely synthesized. I remember talking to Mark. His alias is Abyss. He used to be one half of June Miller, so maybe some of you guys know him. He's a super nice dude. Great producer. Super meticulous about things. And I asked him about like one of his tracks, where the percussion was really well executed, in my opinion. And he said, "Yeah, it's just some FM." I was like, "Yeah. Why should it be complicated? If the drums can be complicated, if the drums can be simple as in a kick or a snare, which is just a sine wave and a bit of noise, yeah, exactly, Mark McCann, then the percussion can be that too. Why not?" So yeah, I'm sorry that it's lagging a little bit, but it's basically just a sine wave with a bit of harmonics. You can play around with the harmonics of the sine wave. If you move this tension knob, it's basically a built-in wave shaper, and then it's I I probably got the shape from just messing around with these parameters. It's nothing galaxy brained. And then I gave it some FM. So there's some frequency modulation going on. And then I gave this FM a looping envelope. So whenever you hold it down, you get this. There we go. Yeah, some sounds with they have some kind of wood character, especially when I hit this note. It reminds me of the timbre of wood or something. And then I give it some chorus by doing some spatialization, some simple distortion, because I guess whenever I encounter wood samples, because like a lot of them are loud really easily, I think a lot of them are distorted, or like wood sounds really good if it's harmonic and it's distorted. I could talk on about wood timbre forever, because I was recently studying the sounds of wood and like literally going to the forest. I live in the Hague currently, and we have this Het Haagse Bos, like the woods from the Hague, next to it, like right next to it. So I can just like jump on my bike, be there in 5 minutes, and record some wood. And I did that, and I noticed that wood isn't always tonal in the way you would expect it to be. But yeah, cool. If I go and take that segue, I would be here for hours. But yeah, to make it a bit more believable and fit better in the, or make it a bit more realistic and fit better in the frequency spectrum, I gave it a bit of a low cut, because I noticed that getting the transients right on this percussion thing didn't really work. So I was like, okay, well then I just completely take it out and make it seem as if it's on purpose, and it worked. So that is the first layer of percussion in the track. But then when the house part starts going, it is literally just a vengeance loop. I think this is the original loop. Yeah, there we go. Some nice Latin house for you. Yeah, no, in this context, I really thought it worked, because it has the same wooden timbre, and it also has something you completely wouldn't expect in this situation, and especially layered with the clap, which is just a clap from the first drop, but I took away some layers to make it shorter and a bit snappier. Yeah, that is like literally the second drop, and that was enough to create this completely different vibe. I just play it for you here. Yeah, I mean, what else is there to be said? I mean, I didn't do anything. Yeah, and what I meant by just making a point is that if this track, if you listen to it from the very first moment, it feels like something like super techy and galaxy brain sound design, blah blah blah. And I wanted to to purposefully break that at some point, by inserting the lowest effort possible sound, which is just like a stupid house loop, which everybody and their mom has downloaded at some point. But yeah, that's just me trying to make a point that if the occasion is right, a sound can be shit, but it can make the context can make it feel right, which I think is super interesting to think about. It's something also to be aware of when you're making music, because you might be working on a sound and think, this sound sounds like ass. But if you then you know, if you then take a step back and don't focus on the sound itself anymore, you can go, you know, a very long way with just trying to think, how can I create a context to make this sound shine instead of that it doesn't sound well by itself? Because the sounds that I've been showing you so far have been like, you know, very polished and they sound good by itself, but that isn't always necessary. I definitely think that's not necessary. If I would show you stems from the Abrasion EP, that would be very apparent, because all of the sounds purposefully sound like crap. You know, I wanted to make a point by saying, okay, if you wear these sounds down, if you make them worse, you get something else. You get something, you know, that people wouldn't want to work with because it has a character that is associated with bad or broken or, you know, not perfect, not polished, so it's bad, which, you know, makes no sense to me. I think if a sound is more broken or more, you know, destroyed, it could have way more character than just a kick that is completely made out of a sine wave, which is, you know, it works and functions, but it's character-wise, it's a bit boring, I think. Cool. Yeah, I could go on. Okay, let's say you give me some time to read some more questions, or just ask some more things, and then I'm gonna call it quits. Lapalux does this super well. Yeah, I mean, dude, you should see my Spotify, my personal Spotify. I literally just listen to Lapalux and artists of that kind, you know, that, you know, completely destroy their sound and then are at peace with that. Any tips about snares? Yeah, I have some tips. Just gonna think about whether I want to share that right now.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer in every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Right now, if there's not any demand for anything else. More tips about snares. What's your process on starting a track? Yeah, likewise. Yeah, Lapalux is so great, man. Broken sounds are sick. When are we getting a Buunshin disco EP? Dude, if I would have the time to make all of the music I have in my head, you would be getting Buunshin disco EP, Buunshin garage albums. You would be getting Buunshin hardcore, because I like making hardcore kicks a lot. You would be getting experimental 8-channel programmer nonsense music, everything, counterpoint and breaking main harmony of an idea. Yeah, that is quite hard to explain. I think Vengeance Loop. Acoustics of Wood. If you have some time, hindsight drums, Buunshin garage. Yeah, no. Okay, I decided I'm just gonna show the snare of this track. And then I'll maybe take some time to talk about some more stuff with you guys. I'll just, you know, I'll keep the DAW open, and yeah, but after that I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah, the only reason why I don't want to talk about counterpoint is I'm not classically trained. I have studied 3 years of music theory and applied music theory, but I definitely wouldn't call myself, somebody that knows a lot about classical music theory, like what counterpoint is a part of. So I don't really dare to go that way. But drums, however, I love talking about drums. I'm way too addicted to drums. Addictive drums. Cool, yeah, this snare is called Fat Boy. And I really don't remember why. And what I'm gonna do is to hopefully make this project file do a bit better, is because I already talked about the bass. I'm just gonna remove it and see if that helps performance. I'm so sorry that my performance is so awful. Nah, it doesn't really work, sadly. Sorry about that, guys. So I can show you the individual layers, and also, yeah, I could just play back the stem, of course. I have the snare itself right here. If you want to sample the shit, open Audacity right now. Don't do that. That was a joke. So this is the snare, and it's so characteristic of the phase I was in, of making the Presence EP and then the follow-up EP. I couldn't imagine myself making this snare again, because I'm so bored of it. I'm so bored. Like, it fulfills its function, but it just doesn't make me happy to make things like these anymore. I was very happy to discover that it works like this, but because if a formula in music is guaranteed, then it becomes stale and boring very quickly. So this is literally just a sine wave with a really short envelope on the level and a really short envelope on the pitch, which creates this, very first moment. No, it's literally just that. If you look in Edison at this millisecond meter, it's like literally only 11 milliseconds. It's almost nothing. Right there. I use this millisecond counter a lot, by the way, if I'm analyzing other people's drums or trying to discover what's wrong with mine. Usually it's related to anything being off in my expectations towards timing, as I said. And then afterwards I made this tail. And I think this tail is absolutely awful. And why? It's because it just sounds like, a piece of plastic. And I was in a phase where I thought, if I can make this minimalistic sound, then it fulfills its function. And I was totally in love with the idea of form follows function. You only have, the bare basics of a sound and nothing else. So you create this idea of that you can use this sound in every track you make, because it characteristically doesn't. It almost does not have any character, so it will always fit or blend if you mix it well enough. That was my idea. But if you think about that, it's a bit boring. It's almost as if you're afraid to create something that says something, or as if you're afraid to make a sound that makes a mistake. And if you listen to the Abrasion EP, like none of this is still there. Of course, there's a bit of sine wave in the acoustic snares to make it a bit stronger, and there is a bit of noise layered on top to make it a bit more, shiny. But that's only there to make the original snare be enhanced a little more, because it wasn't possible with the original sample. yeah, the reason why the vocoder is here is this might be interesting to some of you. Is because if you want to create a stereo layer of noise on top of an already mono layer, you can create a bit of diffusion by using the carrier of the noise sample. And I think, yeah, I think I'm literally just gonna open up a new project file because I think I'm pretty much done here, and then I'll just show it you guys in full quality. So what I would do is, if I would make one of these noise samples, I would take a piece of noise, could be anything really. I have my own custom noises, which is this right here. If anyone wants these noise samples, by the way, just drop a follow on my Instagram and send me a DM, and I will give them to you. I don't really mind. I mean, there's noise samples. I mean, if that helps anybody, that's cool. These noise samples are like super easy to create. It's literally just like what I showed in Serum, like one noise on the left and then another noise on the right at the same time. Sometimes they're mono, sometimes they're spread a little bit more, sometimes they're ring modulated, sometimes they're high passed, which is, it just skips a lot of the steps you would have to go through later on with the filter or the distortion or whatever. So yeah, this is great as a utility thing, I think. But yeah, I would envelope this, and if I would play this by itself, it would be like super stale. It's set to 130 by default. Oh, this envelope 2. Need envelope 1. So again, I'm looking at these milliseconds, and I'm trying to make sure that everything makes sense here. I'm deciding the length of my snare with the length of my envelopes, and therefore how much space it's going to take up in the track, which is super important. You can make a snare that is super cool, but if it doesn't fit in your track, then why did you make it? Because it sounds like ass in your track, which is just a shame. Just gonna make a quick snare body, something like, if I want something high like the snare we just had, should have about 40 milliseconds. I mean, I know this by heart because I've done this so many times. At some point I was just making every track with a synthesized snare. So every time I would just go through this process, do it again, and try to understand it better. So here I just put one of the envelopes on the chorus pitch, and I moved it up about, I don't know, 30 semitones. So it makes this, you have this quickly descending pitch in about 3 milliseconds with a specific curvature as well. That also matters a lot. And then you have a snare body. Basically, you have a snare body. And then you could do that with some noise as well. Have a specific shape, and then these two together. If you shape them correctly and distort them together, before you know it, you have a snare. This sounds very bad. What's also a trick I used in the past is I used one of the peak filters in Serum. I think they sound amazing, so I used them a lot. And then I used the second envelope to try and see how the movement should be while the other envelope is moving. So you get this, you know, it already sounds like a short little movement. You can hear this vowel movement, like whoosh, instead of it being a plain piece of noise. Yeah, let's see whether this works a bit better. Yeah, nah, doesn't work yet. There we go. Yeah, it kind of starts to work now. Yeah, that's decent. I mean, it's not good, but I'll just roll with it. And yeah, what I wanted to show with the vocoder is that it creates this special timbre. The noise itself, it doesn't, you know, have frequencies which are pointing in the frequency spectrum in weird directions, like a real snare. If you look at the frequency spectrum of a normal snare, you see all these peaks and all these troughs, and the noise moves a bit atypical. And yeah, I wanted to emulate that with the vocoder because it's, you know, you can see right here and right there, the frequencies are not distributed in the same way anymore. So I wanted to do that and create a bit of diffusion with the built-in noise oscillator of the vocoder itself. So if you listen really closely, you can make some more of a splashy texture with just using this as a layer. It has some decay, and it will almost act like a reverb, because the built-in noise is working together with the noise of the original to create this moment in the frequency spectrum here, and then before you know it, you have this this long tail which dies out, because the noise here is constantly playing. You don't hear it right now, but when it gets activated by the noise, it gets as an input. It will sustain. So yeah, I would usually add this on top to create even more noise. I don't like it much anymore, but it does do its job. So if you're into this, then do this. Okay, so that's really loud. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, that's already much more of a realistic snare. I should probably filter this so that the very highs aren't there, you know, like a real snares don't have this either. And I should also probably EQ the original noise sample, because it probably has some lows I don't want to be in there. Oh shit, now it's loud again, sorry. Yeah, and the Acme, I mean, I think you get the gist of it. Like, you really quickly get something that resembles a snare, even though there's only like 3 components there right now. That by itself already works pretty well. yeah, by changing the amount of bands in the vocoder, you kind of change this timbre of the snare, because like the bandpass filters, which are spread around the frequency spectrum, are distributed differently. It's a bit hard to see, but if I make the bands, you know, if I make the bandwidth really thin, you get these metallic layers, and you can spot the individual bands a bit easier in the frequency spectrum. If I turn off the noise, maybe. See, that's all of the positions of the bandpass filters. But yeah, I just make these. I like to make these a little wider. I like the sound of that a bit more. Yeah, or a vocoder with no bands, but that's not much of a vocoder, is it? That's just an amplitude follower. Yeah, now sadly the lowest setting is 5 bands. So yeah, I guess it would work like that if it would allow you to go down to 1 band. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, all of the things I would do are based on this idea. I could layer, you know, other samples on top. I could use some convolution reverb, like other people hinted at already. I absolutely love doing this because Fruity, the Fruity Convolver is really good at this. I could literally just go into the FL Studio standard sounds and just go through one of the drum kits. I know where they are because I tend to use these layers a lot because they're really nice. Yeah, and as you can hear, these layers are... Oh, I'm not playing it, but... Okay, so this one is not as tight, but then you can go and edit it in this editor. I don't do this really often, but I should be able to select the whole thing and then say, okay, cut down a bit on the tail. Yeah, now the noise is gone. I can also, you know, go in this window and envelope it, so I could make it even shorter. Yeah, so now I can add this in as a layer, which adds some authenticity instead of it just being a synthesized snare. And if I would want the timbre to change, I can just, you know, stretch the sample to go up or down in pitch. I mean, it's super easy to over-exaggerate here, so that's why I don't really like to do it often. Gonna cut the tail a little bit. Yeah, and I mean, in my opinion, now we've already made something that is way more interesting than what we had before, because only for the simple fact of just adding an acoustic layer. So yeah, guys, I went a bit balls to the walls, overboard on the snare talk, and I hope you don't mind. I hope you appreciated that, or I hope at least some of that information was useful to you, because I can imagine that if people would already synthesize their own drums, that would be a bit basic. But nevertheless, that is how I approached the snares in those tracks. I was like very much a beginner as well. So yeah, there's not much to say anymore, I think. So I think I'm just gonna call it quits for now. I hope all of you enjoyed this stream so far. Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad you like the quality of the workshop. There's so much to talk about with things like these, because as I said, I like to think about things a lot, not necessarily. I don't always necessarily do them, but I like to think at least. So yeah, I'm glad you could all appreciate it. It at least seems like it. So if there's anything else you want to ask, feel free to drop a follow on Instagram, send me a message. I'll see what I can do. I don't have that much time, but I tend to do some private sessions from time to time. So if anybody is interested in that, just feel free to drop me a message. And yeah, depending on situations, I might be back for a follow-up workshop if anybody would be interested. So yeah, that was it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Buunshin, and I am out. I'll see you later.